You guys, what's up? Welcome back to my channel, welcome back to this video. So I've talked a lot about filming, cameras, technology, and all that over the past couple videos, but I thought today I would talk about a different topic. So I've talked about using like full DSLR cameras, micro four thirds cameras, all these cameras I can really substitute as a beginner grade cinema camera, but I thought I would tackle another topic I've hinted a couple times. Can you use a GoPro as your main camera? So I've had a lot of cameras over the years. I've had a couple of Nikon, I've had a couple Panasonics, and I've had some GoPros. I have a 7 and a 10. I've had a 9 as well, actually. So I also had the original. That's back home, but that's not actually, that one isn't the subject of today's video. So today I just want to talk about using different cameras for different purposes, or just how to use different cameras in a way that will get you good content. Can you even record on a GoPro? Can it be your main camera? Let's tackle some of those questions. Okay, so as I hinted, different cameras are best used for different purposes. You can have a main DSLR for photos and video. You can have a phone for B-roll and A-roll and all that kind of stuff, or just quick photos on the go. And you can have GoPros, or action cameras as they're technically called, for everything else in between. What's good about an action camera, you might ask? Well, with a camera that's this small that can shoot 5.5K video or 4K at 120 frames per second at a lovely 16.9, either linear, meaning a square, wide, meaning a wider aspect ratio, or an ultra wide, giving you a 12mm fisheye effect, in something this small at this price point is something not many other cameras can do. So what are some things you can do with it? Well, a lot of people will take them while they're surfing or while they're doing mountain biking, motocross, a lot of high intensity action sports that you can attach it to. You could technically wear a harness and strap it straight to your chest and run around while you're playing soccer. I don't know. There's no end to the things you can do with a GoPro or an action camera in general. So what are some of the negatives? Well, if you look at this video, I have a lovely blurred background, correct? And so what does that give me? Well, it gives me a look of higher quality and all sorts of things like that. It gives me a look of higher quality and all that sort of fun stuff. It's a depth of field, it's the f-stop that so many people talk about. These cameras can't change their aperture. It's a wide open 22, nothing changes there. Same with this GoPro. Now this camera, this can go down to a 4.3. The camera I'm recording on right now, I'm recording at a 2.8. And so it's these cameras that can create these depth of field, these true field depth. It's these cameras that can record video with true depth of field that look professional, that look more professional, that look like high-end cinematography that these GoPros can't do. Now, that does mean they require more setup, more monitoring, more skill, but in the end it looks so much better. So let me take an example here. So if I go to my camera app on my phone, and I'll just do a screen recording so you can see this as well. Okay, so we're recording. So if I take this, here you guys are, right? So as you look, like it's got a pretty decent blur for a sensor this small, right? So if we switch over to video, still that blur is there, and it looks pretty professional for something of this size. If I put it on 2x, it's even crazier, right? So I can go down to this camera here, it looks good, go over to this camera here, go to that little rock there. It's a very shallow depth of field on a camera like this. And that's pretty good for something like an iPhone, for a smartphone, and along those lines. Now these cameras, they don't do that. So if I boot up both of these cameras, I think this one doesn't have a battery in it. That one doesn't have a battery in it. But if I take it, and let's go ahead and just start recording. I take it here, see, everything's in focus. Actually, the camera isn't in focus, but everything in the background is. Go over here, camera's in focus. Here, camera's in focus, camera's in focus. Everything stays in focus on a camera like this. And now, last but not least, say I pull out my DSLR. Obviously, it doesn't have a memory card, but if I crank this, there we go. Okay, so I will actually take a picture because my camera battery is dead, or it doesn't have an SD card in it. Cool. So if you look, there's a nice depth of field. There we go. So it has a nice depth of field. Sure, it takes a little longer to get there, but it has it, and it looks good, and it looks professional. So really, this boils down to the question of what do you want your video to look like? Do you want it to look professional and like a beginner cinematographer, or do you want it just run and gun, done? Do you want a wider angle view? Do you want a narrow angle view? GoPros, I mean, this has like a 12mm ultra wide, and so for that, that's great if you're looking for that kind of setup. For me, if I want my stuff to look good, I'm gonna take a Fujifilm, I'm gonna take my Panasonic, slap on a 12mm, but with like a 2.8 aperture, and then I'll get that look, but it'll still look professional. So there are a few things that I've mentioned that give away the presence of a GoPro. A super wide angle viewpoint, a lack of any depth of field. Let's see, what else have I written down here? Those are the two big ones, but what can you do about them? Well, not a lot actually. It's very disappointing if you're looking for a shallow depth of field on a GoPro. It's virtually impossible to do. There are a few hacks you can do, like taking a macro lens and putting it on and doing this, that, and the other, but then your depth of field is so stinking small and shallow that it's only a couple millimeters in front of the lens. So it's very hard to get any depth of field effect. But how can you take a GoPro video and make it look acceptable? Well, there's a couple different things. One, let's look at how the video looks, right? It's ultra wide, it's stretched, it's fisheye, okay? So what can we do to eliminate this fisheye effect? Well, we can put it on linear. This will cut out a rectangle in the middle of the video that has either minimal or no distortion on it around the edges, and it'll make it look closer. Then it'll just look like a camera that's on f-stop of like 22, right? Where everything's in focus. Okay, so what else can we do? Well, a GoPro is an action camera, so that means it's gonna have a high frame rate. It's gonna look really choppy if you move it around at all. So what can you do to change that? Well, even though it is highly debated, record in 24 or 30 FPS. This is closest to what the human eye sees and will eliminate rolling shutter, but it will also not look so fluid it looks fake like an action camera. Film in 4K, that's another one. All GoPros at this point shoot in some form of 4K, and if you record in 4K, this will allow you to crop in, punch in later. So instead of being way back here, I can be sitting here and you won't know the difference because I just crop in the edit. Let's talk about coloring on a GoPro. So there's a vivid profile, a standard profile, and a flat profile. Flat will allow you the most editing ability in Final Cut, DaVinci, whatever your video editing software is. That will allow you the most creativity, the most ability to adapt and change your color. If you want to shoot in something you don't need to edit a lot later, shoot in natural. This will give you the closest to life color from a GoPro. If you want something a little punchier for like promo content, shoot in vivid. That's going to give you your best results there. Okay, and then comes the kicker, a good microphone. So with the Hero 9, 10, and 8, 9, and 10 actually, on the side of the cameras here, there is a place for, there's a USB-C port. And with these, you can get attachments from GoPro called a media mod, which will allow you to add an external microphone. This is crucial when you're recording with a GoPro because the microphones on these cameras are so not professional sounding. You need to either record your audio from a secondary device or just have a microphone plugged into your GoPro. This is a must. Alright, another big one is stabilization. GoPros are known for having some of the craziest stabilization, but if you're doing something like vlog style content and everything looks perfectly silky smooth, that's also going to be a giveaway you're not using a normal camera. Now there's a couple caveats to that. One, if you have it on hyper smooth stabilization, for example, everything is going to look fluid and smooth, but it's also going to start looking muddier as it's trying to keep you perfectly in the frame and shifting up and down to accommodate that. It'll start to look muddier and more washed. So instead of putting on hyper smooth boost, put it on hyper smooth or put it on mid stabilization if that's what it's called. I don't remember really right now. Put it on whatever mid setting you can get so that it will look the most natural. Because when you're holding a camera, I don't care how good your stabilization is, it's not going to look perfectly smooth. So accommodate for that in a GoPro. Don't let it look perfectly smooth, because that's not how life is. And then comes the kicker. Don't film like you're using a GoPro. You don't film with a DSLR going wee 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 wee. So don't film with a GoPro like that. Treat it like it's a micro cinema camera and it will look better. If you want to get a slow-mo shot, shoot on a 10, shoot in 4K 120, go smooth, fluid, linear, and then come back through later and edit it, and it will look closer to a cinema camera or just a higher end camera at all. Alright, with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful just talking about GoPros, comparing them to normal cameras, and just a couple ways you can get your GoPro footage from looking yuck to looking yeah. Yeah, so go out, try these things with your GoPro if you have one. If you don't, and you know someone who does, consider passing along some of this advice to them. It makes your GoPro footage look a lot better. That being said, thanks for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.